It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name is George Cooper and welcome to the show. After 35 attempts and 74 years of waiting, Fulham have finally won a football match at Turf Moor. My God, relief is probably the word that springs to mind first. Wasn't a comprehensive victory, but by God, the 3 points were very, very sweet. I was there when Fulham somehow managed to lose a Premier League game of football 2-1 without Burnley having a single shot on target. Such is the curse that has gripped this football club at this particular ground. But we can put those years of hurt behind us after those 3 points on Saturday. Inexplicably, the 5:30 kickoff on Sky Sports, I think a few of my mates were at the pub were quite puzzled by that decision, but we'll take it. We certainly shall take it. Also, some really big performances from the likes of Harry Wilson, Bert Leno, which we'll come on to, and of course the return of the Jedi. What a sweet surprise that was. To unpack everything that happened up north, we are joined by Mr. Cam Ramsey. You good, mate?
Yeah, festive salutations, brethren. How are we doing? It's good to be back on the podcast, I have to say.
Yeah,
it's been a very long time.
Good to have you back, mate. I'm feeling very festive today. I've got the tree in. As you can see, our viewers on YouTube will get the full benefit of the background. Also going to the darts later as well. What more can you want from this festive period? We've got Joe Gunning with us as well, who joins us from far afield. Can you give let the listeners know where you are?
Yeah, I'm currently in Bogota, Colombia. I've been out in Central South America for about 2 months now. So supporting Fulham from out here is pretty difficult. There have been a lot of games watched on coaches, a lot of Irish pubs located along the way. But I have had the joy of getting to watch Fulham in nice warm weather lately. So that's how things are going out here. I'm yet to meet another Fulham fan though on my travels. So there's still a couple months to go. So we'll see. How
have you been following you just using some sort of, have you found a little Fulham bar in the far-flung corners of South America, or are you just trying to get some sort of stream on your phone, or are you listening to Gentleman Jim's commentary? What have you been going for? I mean, I'm always intrigued to hear people's different sort of routes in.
Yeah, normally it's actually quite easy here to find a pub showing the game. I just literally stuck into my phone pubs showing Premier League football near me, and there was one about a 3-minute walk away. Had to turn off the Colombian game that was going on. Not sure if too many people were happy in there to have that substituted for Fulham versus Burnley. But I will have it known that we did make it to ESPN1, even out here. I was going to go to a Santa Fe match, actually, because Hugo Rodallega is their top goal scorer. So I was quite keen to go and see him play, but the season ended about a week before I came out here. So that was a bit disappointing. But I'm hoping when I get to Brazil, I'm going to see some past and present. Or not present, but past.
Yeah, that would what a way to, when I can imagine when your family looking back, asking you what the highlights of your travels were, and you say, "Oh, I almost got to see Hugo Rodallega play a game for his local club," but unfortunately not to be. Also joined by Mr. Dan Cooke, fantastic quick take over the weekend, has to be said. Are you ready to talk about this game some more? Have you got any sort of fresh perspectives, or how are you feeling?
I think so. I think there was a lot to talk about. It was for a game that was quite rightly bagged by every single neutral fan. And actually, I think some Fulham and Burnley fans as well. What a ridiculous game to put on your primetime slot. Turned out being quite a good game to watch. So for all the people slagging it off, I reckon they had a fun couple of hours watching that game.
Yeah, no, for sure. In the group chat during the match, Jordan said that it had the feel of a sort of Sunday league game, didn't it? It was like quite sort of gaping defensive errors, breaks. Like it was a bit sort of chaotic. Quality generally pretty low. However, undeniably entertaining.
Yeah, I will say this with all love for Harry Wilson, but the graphic that Sky Sports had as the build-up to the game was Josh Cullen and Harry Wilson as the two faces of their clubs, and I did think little bit top of the championship clash It's not. It doesn't scream Premier League, but obviously Harry Wilson went and showed everyone that he is Premier League quality. So
yeah, absolutely. No disrespect to Harry Wilson. He's earning his flowers. It has to be said. You know, watching it with a few pals of the pub, they're like, that Wilson, he's a techie little player. And yeah, he's getting his plaudits, rightly so. Bit of change of tack. I'm actually going to do 3-word reviews because I realised halfway into my intro that I forgot to ask any of you lot to do it. So I've got them up here. So we've got Tony Banks. These are all from X, by the way. Tony Banks, wonderful Wilson time as a theme emerging here, as I'm sure you'll tell. Charlie Boy, Wizard ends curse. Very own Cam Ramsey with Turf Moor. Very good, Cam. Toby Boystein says no Platinum Jubilee, alluding to the curse, of course. Here for the Fulham, Marco the Curse Breaker. Richard Bamber with 74-year margin, a nod to our former boss there. What else have we got here? No Justice, No Peace, Wizard reverses Cursed. And then Gerard Lyons with Leno Wilson Show. We'll chat one final in, Jacob Cooper, them fine margins. Again, another. We've got quite a few actually, them fine margins coming through. Jarek's also pitched in with that one. And Mike, Sex Receipts Penguin, finest of margins. As I'm scrolling, I'm just getting barraged with the sea of, those 5 margins, FFC voice, another one. So a lot of nods to our old boss there. Cam, how do you feel? I mean, Sammy and Jack spoke about it on the Thursday Club, that they're kind of like, they said they're over the Scott Parker beef at the moment. They were like, we had our fun in the when he was at Bournemouth during that year, and you know, it's kind of like a bit passé. But I don't know about you. I still feel very happy to put one past our former boss. Where do you sit on this side of the debate?
Well, it's always nice to give a little bit of needle, isn't it? It makes the games a little bit more interesting when we come up against his teams. And credit to him, actually. Whenever he sets up against us, he always seems to actually do quite a good job, really. He seems to... I think he probably focuses on Fulham just as much as any other big team in the Premier League, just purely to try and get one up over us himself. So obviously to condemn him to a 7th straight consecutive loss in the Premier League, it's not necessarily a record you want on your mantle, is it really? But I mean, former player, he was excellent, of course, as a player for us. Couldn't really fault him for that. But I don't know. I think there's been an odd atmosphere around him in the last couple of years, and of course, I'm one for shit housing and shit talking as much as anybody else is. So if there's an opportunity to do it, and Scott Parker's the buck of the joke, then why not, really? And in this occasion, he most certainly is. So I hope he has a terrible Christmas.
Yeah, I was kind of before the match like, Scott Parker, I'm kind of over that kind of thing. And then when I saw the disgrace of the cardigan that he was wearing, sort of Burton bargain bin honking cardigan, grey sleeve on the side, I was instantly transported to that year where we had him in the Premier League, and all of those feelings came flooding back. But yeah, anyway, we had the final laugh. Dan, starting lineup, I would say is probably, given form and all things considered, I would say probably the strongest lineup that we have available to us at the moment. Obviously, really lovely to see Robinson come back into the fold. Timely as well, given obviously Sessegnon's injury. Iwobi in the middle. I mean, to me, I thought it was a pretty strong starting lineup.
Yeah, I thought it was ticking all the boxes. The only thing it was great to see Jedi back, but it was just a little part of me that was okay. There's no way he's ready for this, and this might be a bit arrogant, but we probably should be able to beat Burnley without having to play Anthony Robinson at left back. Like, we should be getting over the line with Castagna there, and so part of me felt that you just start Castagna, give him 60 to 70 minutes, and then you can bring Robinson on. The fact that Anthony ended up playing the full 90 is pretty mental to me. But otherwise, ticked all the boxes. It was playing the hits, it was playing the informed players, and that was great to see, because I think from pretty much the first minute, it felt like we clicked into a nice gear, and I think that's emblematic of picking the right team. Like, we saw the inverse of that when we played Manchester City. We picked the wrong starting 11 and we felt it straight away. So I think hopefully we're building up enough body of evidence here to Marco that this is our best team when these players are available.
Yeah, it was one of those where if Robinson had aggravated his injury, it would be like, oh, why have we done that? It was too soon. That's what we'd be saying now. But thankfully, wasn't the case. Great to see him back. I think he looked understandably rusty at times. He was brilliant as well in moments, and I strongly emphasise the fact that I'm delighted to see him back, and obviously we'll give him some time to get back up to speed. But yeah, I think it was a really, really strong lineup. Joe, we got off the mark fairly soon through quite an unusual circumstance. It was a corner routine. Looked beautifully well. Actually, the first time that I watched it, I thought I just couldn't quite understand what had happened. And then upon watching the replay, I'm really torn between it being a genius training ground move or just shocking defending from Burnley. They had Hartman, who's a left-footed left back, defending the inside right-hand post. He completely misses the ball. ESR completely unmarked, tucks it in. Cheeky little ball in from Wilson. Is it a brilliant, well-worked routine, shocking defending, or a bit of both, to use the old football cliche?
I'll be honest, I'm fully in the camp of it was intentional. I think that the way, when they zoom in on the box just before the ball goes in, you see Smith Rowe dart into that area. And I think it's also quite interesting to see Kenny Tete in the position that he kind of holds in that goal. He sort of blocks the man that's meant to be on that first post and occupies him. And I also don't think that Harry Wilson messes up a corner that badly, especially with the form that he's in at the moment. So really, really nice to see Smith Rowe get a goal, especially after he had that one kind of ruled out last week. I think he's looking really sharp at the moment. And I do think it was, at the end of the day, really, really poor defending as well. But it's nice to get a set-piece goal when we've had, some set-piece woes over the past few months.
Yeah, it was Tete blocking Foster, wasn't it? And after the game, which kind of may swing me slightly into the sort of genius routine camp, Wilson said that they've been studying Burnley's kind of sort of unusual setup from set pieces. So yeah, makes you think that it was they've done their homework effectively. Dan, it didn't take that long for Burnley though to get back into the game. It just looked bit of a sloppy goal to concede from Fulham. And again, to my point earlier, I think it was just a demonstration of Robinson maybe being a tad rusty, coming back from that long injury, left a big old gap between him and Bassey, which was ultimately exploited. I mean, yeah, where do you think we should be doing better effectively?
I think there's a couple of scenarios. I think there's rightly been a lot of focus on that decision-making between Robinson and Bassey, where that space ends up being way too big. And I think Anthony Robinson is largely to blame because he chooses to go and cover the wide option and doesn't tend to that central option. But I'm assuming he does it because he thinks Bassey's going to handle it. And so I think that just comes down to they haven't played together in ages, and maybe you just lose that feel a little bit. So not even necessarily rustiness from Robinson, just a lack of cohesion with his centre-back partner, because he hasn't played with him in a while. But I also think that there's an issue in the middle of the park before it comes, that there's just too much space there. And I don't know who you really blame. I think one of Sander Berger and Alex Iwobi has to be covering that central area. And it feels like Sander gets dragged out really wide and it just opens up space in the middle for Josh Cullen. So I think there's a couple of areas where Fulham should be preventing that from happening. It's really poor. Like, I'm watching it unfold. I was just baffled. I was like, what are we doing? Like, you shouldn't. Like, we scored 3 easy goals against Burnley, and you can argue maybe that's okay because Burnley are pretty poor. They're going to be down there, but we've got to be better than that. We can't be giving teams such freebies because we're not. Barring the past few games, we're not blessed with goal scoring ability at the moment. And when you start making such easy opportunities for your opposition, suddenly we end up having to score 3 goals to win a game. And there's been plenty of games this season where we haven't had 3 goals in us.
You mentioned in your quick take that you feel like Sander needs to work on his out of possession positioning. And do you think that the fact that he was dragged that wide for this goal is kind of testament to that point? Is this the sort of thing that you were alluding to?
Yeah, I think so. It's a combination of building that awareness of being that soul holding midfielder as well, particularly when he plays alongside Alex Iwobi. I think he's taken on a lot of that responsibility. He's done really well in possession, but he needs to be a bit more of a crasher, a breaker-upper. And so, one, he needs to be in better positions, but two, he's a big lad, and I don't know why he doesn't assert himself on games more. Because when he has the ball, you watch him, he shrugs people off, charges away from them. But when opposition have the ball, so often I just see him put in a tackle that's 70% of what I feel like he's capable of doing. It's almost like he's too nice, and I think he could be so much more imposing. I think it would make a big difference to this side if he was.
Yeah, I guess, with coming off the back of the Paulinho era, and he was the best player in the Premier League at this, and obviously comparing any player to him is a difficult position to be in, but maybe that's somewhat what we're missing somewhat.
It's tough, and I will caveat as well. I thought he played really well.
Likewise.
Partially at fault for that first goal just due to his positioning, but I thought he had a really good game. But you compare it to someone like the forgotten Harrison Reed, who isn't blessed with those physical traits, but he would just shuttle. He'd just constant shuttle runs, being a nuisance, getting in people's faces. And sometimes I feel like we could do with some of that being inside Sander Berge as well.
Yeah, that sort of terrier kind of doggedness. Yeah. It didn't take long for Fulham to reinstate their lead, though, Cam. A lovely goal from our very own Calvin Bassey, of all people, who found himself in some goal-scoring positions on multiple occasions this game. We'll come on to that one a bit later. But yeah, I think for me, this goal is all about Harry Wilson. It came from a corner, second, it came back out to him, and it's his touch, the way he brings it out of the sky. It just gives him so much time. And you see, he brings it down with the touch. He's not even looking at the ball as it comes down, which just oozing confidence effectively. And you only get to pull off bits of skill like that if you are just really, really at the top of your game. And takes his time, plonks the ball directly onto Bassey's head. He says thank you very much. There's still a lot of men in the Burnley box as well. To pick him out like that is just brilliant. Ultimate composure from Wilson, and a good finish by Bassey. Yeah, anything more to add on the goal?
Absolutely. I think obviously when Burnley were obviously squeezing out defensively to try and gain territory, it's the curved run from Wilson which really makes it all. And it's just he's a master at those kind of undetectable runs, despite the fact that obviously Burnley should have been aware that we had Harry Wilson out wide, and we're likely to pump the ball back into the danger zone. It's the trajectory and the timing of the run which just made it all sweeter. And it really can't be slept on how difficult that technique is to pluck the ball out of thin air, especially with it coming over your shoulder in such a way. I've tried it time and time again, and I've pulled many hamstring trying to do it as well, and I'd never ever be able to replicate it in the way that Wilson did. But it's also the fact that he recognised that he had so much time for him just to pick and choose his spot, and it was perfectly weighted for Calvin Bassey as well, who's evidently pulled up his shorts in an attacking sense, maybe not defensively, as we've already covered for the goal which we conceded first. But pleased for Calvin. Of course, it's a massive carrot for him to get a goal in the Fulham colours just before he goes away to the AFCON. But Wilson's definitely riding a monumental wave at the moment, a tidal wave really, in terms of his confidence. And over the coming weeks, as I'm sure we're going to discuss at length over the show, he's going to be so important for us with so many influential players leaving, and long may it continue. But in terms of the build up to the goal, yeah, it in many ways it was absolutely world class, because it's also putting a hoisted ball across the 6-yard box where a goalkeeper, really should be doing better, and they should be marshalling the defence maybe a tiny bit better than what they were. So it needed to be inch perfect, and it just was. And it just signifies the form which Wilson's in at the moment, and we're reaping the rewards of it really. And really, really proud of him. We're really pleased for him as well.
Yeah, no, here, and great to see Bassey getting a goal as well. It's not often he gets on the score sheet. I just want to touch upon his run in the second half while we're on the subject of Bassey. So he gets the ball in his own box and just goes on this absolutely lung-busting run down the right-hand side of the pitch. Somehow manages to find himself in the area after shrugging off a couple of challenges, cuts inside, sends, I'm not sure who the defender was, absolutely skidding off. And then he has that moment where he just pauses and you're thinking, right, He's got two men open. Chukwueze's crying out for it. And you think, is he going to lay it off to his Super Eagles teammate? It's going to be this legendary goal. And Calvin in that moment just thinks, nah, I'm having this. You can see, it was that moment where you could sense that he could just see the headlines, like, you know, goal of the season, centre back, like, you know, like the goal that we saw from Tottenham centre back a couple of weeks ago. You know, it was just, that was what he wanted to recreate. And then proceeds to spoon the ball so badly. It not only like goes incredibly high, I think it actually ultimately goes out for a throw-in at the end of the day. And he just obviously crashes down in a heap, absolutely just out of breath. And I think kind of like laughing to himself at the moment. You can see him when he's on the floor, he's got a smile on his face, and you just know that he's going to get some stick for that on the team bus on the way back, which he absolutely did, deservedly so. So I'm actually going to play this clip for the benefit of those who haven't already heard it. So this is Iwobi recreating what I've just described to Chukwueze, and I think it's actually Calvin Bassey filming it, if I'm not mistaken. But this is just pure Iwobi at his very best. So.
Cross him. Yeah. 200 meters. My man got, I thought, oh, all right. Calvin's in the box. Yeah. On his right foot. Yeah. Maybe he's going to dink him back post. No. Chop. My man's he's still sliding. Bro, I was taking an extra touch. I thought, Lord of Jesus, where is this ball going to go? No, darling, hold my hand. Don't pick me so gentle. Holiday. That ball has gone to AFCON before we gone there. That ball has gone. I thought, Jesus. Then I looked at the clip. Shima, then that was free. Lord of Jesus. Can I miss? After I can miss, I shoot the ball like I'm a chocolate.
So Anchor and Messi there. Joe, I mean, like, how big a misser are these three going to be when they go to AFCON? I mean, like, I absolutely love having the three of them at Fulham, and I'm going to be very, very sad when this dynamic trio eventually gets broken up and one of them leaves. I don't even really want to think about it, but yeah, I feel like a big part of Fulham's team spirit comes from these three, like the characters that they are, the performances they put on the pitch. But we're going to really miss these three when they do go to AFCON.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think, especially considering this sort of resurgence of Alex Iwobi as an 8, it's really, really changed the way we've played as a whole. And I think that it's not only we're going to be missing their individual qualities, but now we're going to have to shift the way that we're playing as a team back to what wasn't really working a few weeks ago. And I think that that's going to be difficult. I think that there could be ways around it. I mean, we could try something like Josh King as an 8, but I just don't see Marco Silva actually going for something like that. I'd be very surprised if we're not kind of going back to a Lukic Berger midfield. In terms of Bassey going, I'm actually quite intrigued to see Cuenca get a long spell of games. I think we all know the quality that he possesses. And I think it has felt unfair at times that he's not been given a chance. Like at the beginning of the season when he got a few games, he always seemed to perform, not really put a foot wrong. So I'm quite excited to see that. And then I think the biggest miss of all of them will be Chukwueze. I mean, the form that he's found in the last few games, it's his ability to kind of weight every single ball perfectly, pick every pass. Sometimes he'll play a pass and I'll think at first that it's looked like he's made a mistake and it will just perfectly find the feet of the player that he's tried to find. I think the third goal was a perfect example of that yesterday, where I was actually shouting at the TV to pass to Robinson on the overlap, and instead he kind of cuts it into Harry Wilson, who from then on, that's just his bread and butter. But I think that they will be a miss, but I'm interested to see how we do without them, and which players come in and decide that this is their time to make a statement.
Yeah, a real test of our depth coming up, I think. But yeah, big opportunity, as you say. I want to talk about the periods sort of going into the second half and sort of the early stages of the second half. I think this was quite a pivotal part of the game for us, because I do think this was when Burnley kind of had some big chances, really. They had that stinging shot from Ugo Chukwu on the volley that Leno made a really, really good save from. And then there was another big save about 55 minutes in, ESR, sloppy back pass, 18-yard box, one-on-one with Larson. Stands up big. It was, I think those two saves, Dan, kind of kept us in the game. And if we concede either of them, then I think that we could be looking at potentially a very different outcome of this match. So, you rightly sort of gave Harry Wilson his flowers in your quick take. But for me, I would argue that Leno also has a very good case for being our man of the match.
Oh, absolutely. There is definitely an argument that we don't win that game without Bernd Leno. And I think I said it on the quick take, but a couple of the saves he makes them look like easier saves because of how quickly he's off his line, how alert he is to the danger. And actually, I would argue in recent times that's been one of his issues. And the two issues I've had with Bernd this season is he's struggled with the shots from distance. We seem to concede a lot of them. And that save he makes from Ugochukwu's volley is one of those that I was expecting to go in as I saw it travelling towards the goal, because it's not the sort of save he's been making this season. It's superb. It's brilliant. And then he's had issues coming off his line. I think we saw it against City. There was the Reinders goal where I thought he was just slow to come out. But every time on Saturday, he was off his line at the feet of the forwards, and he just made it hard enough for them and basically nearly made it impossible to get the ball past him unless they did something pretty special. So that's a really welcome return to form, because we're going to need him, and this team needs him in good form, because we're clearly not capable of limiting the opposition's chances. It feels like in any game they're going to have one or two big opportunities, so we're relying on a goalkeeper to bail us out, and he did that. He bailed ESR out. He also bailed us out on a couple of occasions where there was just miscommunication between the back line. I think there's a one-on-one in the first half where Calvin Bassey lets it run across the face, thinking someone's covering him, and has no idea that Ugochukwu's run around the other side of him. So super important performance. And I do think, if Harry Wilson doesn't score the third goal and it's someone else and he's not involved, Bernardo probably does win man of the match, but you can't overlook 2 assists and a goal, can you?
No, of course not. It was an amazing return from Wilson and just an all-round fabulous performance. His goal, textbook Harry Wilson, just when he is able to cut inside like that, you just know that he's finding the side netting, basically. And I think we also need to give props to Chukwueze, 4th assist of the season already. Beautiful ball over to Harry. And I think, would you argue the goal was a bit against the run of play, but it certainly did a lot to sort of quell the nerves, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say it probably was. That was when Burnley had their tails up, and of course they were knocking on the door. But that's the beauty of counter-attacking football, the players that we have with the insurgents going forward. Harry Wilson, people are saying that he's got a tremendous back catalogue of goals this season, and in Fulham shirt in general, he only seems to score worldies. I mean, he has something special about him. His serious wander by left foot and the shape of his shots is just serious stuff. But to pick it out where he was in the penalty area as well, I think for him just to get the poise and to set himself properly, especially when he could have just lashed it first time. The timing on it was just perfect, and it just goes to show what kind of confidence he has running through him at the moment. And just touching on Chukwueze as well, what an impact he's made. It could have gone one or two ways with Chukwueze. He was either going to come into the fold and be a peripheral figure, not really feeding the Premier League or what we're trying to achieve this season, or he was going to make absolute impact, and he has done every single time he's played for us. And I think obviously that's a testament to the immaculate vibes within the team, obviously linking up with his compatriots as well, certainly help him settle in. But there isn't a more exciting player to watch other than Harry Wilson, of course, than Chukwueze at the moment. And again, he's going to be sorely missed, because I do think he's genuinely enjoying his time in SW6. And I really, really hope we manage to keep hold of him in the summer and beyond, because he just complements our style so well.
Yeah, what I think I love about Samu as well is that he just tries things, and he will make mistakes. And I think there will be games that we see him in a Fulham shirt where he's, a 4 out of 10, because it's just a day where everything he tries doesn't come off. But I love that, because I think we lack that. like we've said it quite a lot this season, that what we're not doing is trying enough. We're not putting in enough creativity. We're not trying the 1 in 10 passes that if you do get them right, you're through and you've got a chance on goal. And I love that Samu does that. He acts purely based on instinct, and he feels in a way uncoachable to an aspect, because actually Marco can say what he wants to Samu about where he positions, but I feel like he just spots moments. He's like, do you know what? I think I'm on the left wing right now, but I reckon if I pop up in the half space on the right hand side, I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to cause some damage. And I love that freedom. I think that makes a huge difference to this team.
I agree. I think he's such an expressive player, and very, very hard to tether, isn't he? If you're marking him, then you've got a job to get the better of him in that game, because it's not only the fact that he can go on the outside, but when he drifts inside, when he's got the ball at his feet, he's so good technically, and obviously a real handful, and ridiculously difficult to shrug off the ball as well. And it's that kind of expression that you need in a player, just to kind of run on impulse as well. Far too often you see wingers nowadays are just robotic, aren't they? They're almost they're almost schooled to be too structured. And I think the whole point of being a wide man is to have a little bit of invention in your game, and a little bit of flair and impact. And it's just a breath of fresh air to see somebody like him, with the electricity he has, obviously coursing through every single touch he has. He gets bums off seats. And yeah, I totally agree. I think Marco probably wants to try and outline a few things to him, just to try and make him a bit more of a structured player. But why would you? The majority of the team will do exactly as he asks, but you still need a maverick in there just to shake things up a little bit. And my word, is he that guy? He is that guy at the moment. Along with Harry Wilson, they're both ticking along quite nicely.
I think I've said for a couple seasons now that one of the things that I feel like Fulham really lack is a player who's able to take us to the next level. And when we're losing games, a player that's able to elevate the rest of the team and pick us up points in games where perhaps we don't deserve to. You look at like Mbuemo for Brentford, Bowen for West Ham, Semenyo for Bournemouth. And I almost wonder in the last couple of weeks whether Harry Wilson or Chukwueze are able to become that player for us. Because I think if we are able to have a player like that, it will win us points. And I think it is something that we've severely lacked when competing with teams for like those top 8 positions that all seem to have that sort of player. It would be absolutely fantastic for us to kind of have our own gem that we can get all excited over.
No, I hear you for sure. I think like Chukwueze, as you said, Joe, the weight of his balls are just brilliant, and every time he gets the ball, you just have that feeling that something's going to happen. And yeah, I just think that to have 2 wingers that are just really hitting form and enjoying their football, and to think we've got an option to buy as well. I mean, if I were Marco, I'd be doing everything that I can to convince him to stay. Chukwueze did an interview on the Fulham website recently where he said that he'd really loving the reaction he's been getting from the fans, and he's feeling at home. So, fingers crossed we can convince him. Joe, I just want to talk about the final kind of 15, 20 minutes of the game. Obviously, Burnley sort of crawled their way back into it with a goal via Oliver Sun. It was a really well taken goal, it has to be said. But I mean, we never seem to make it easy for ourselves, do we?
No. It almost felt inevitable what was going to happen. I think after that second goal went in, we all kind of went, here we go again. Like we're actually not going to win another game. And I think that the substitutions made were interesting. I think Jimenez needed to come off. He looked so leggy. And then obviously you have the problem of, well, if Jimenez needs to come off, then who's going to come on? Because we don't have a natural striker on the bench. And it seemed like Marco almost opted to bring Josh King on in sort of like some sort of false 9. And I thought to myself, all right, like interesting, we'll see how it goes. But then as soon as Burnley score and kind of you need to be dedicated to defending, you need a player who's able to just hold the line up there that you can boot balls forward to, and he's able to hold it up, kind of waste some time, bring the rest of the team into it. And Josh King's not going to be able to do that. And then it kind of provides us with a headache of, okay, well, what are we going to do now? Are we just going to leave it and hope it works for the next 10 minutes, or are we going to try and change it? And I thought that Marco bringing Adama on didn't surprise me, actually, because I thought that Adama does have the potential to be that guy up front who is able to hold up the ball at least better than Josh King and perhaps, make runs into the corners of the pitch. That didn't surprise me so much, but then it felt a bit awkward of, okay, now who is actually positioned where? And it felt like in my head, I could just see things turning into a bit of a mess again. But luckily it seemed like we were able to manage to keep on to the 3 points, which was good. I think it shows a sort of resilience that we've lacked over the past few weeks. I don't think it was good enough though, in terms of letting them get back into the game the way we did. We should be, especially against a team of Burnley's quality, kind of finishing that game off far before we did. But in the end, I mean, I saw people really unhappy after the game, but I was still over the moon just to finally get 3 points again.
Yeah, likewise. And I think that, whilst there were big positives from this performance, there are obviously frailties there. And Dan, you spoke very well on this subject that Joe's just brought up in terms of the substitutions or lack thereof, which kind of allowed Burnley to sneak back into this game. Also, just want to hear your thoughts on the fact that Kusiasari again was left out of the squad. So obviously leaving us no striker alternative really. I don't know, Dan, if you were Marco Silva, how would you have dealt with the kind of, the latter stage of the game once we had that 3-1 lead?
Well, I just think the fact that we didn't see a substitution until the 79th minute, that was the problem to me. Like, I was totally okay with the fact that we did gun for 4 or 5. We were going for an extra goal, but there became a moment where the tide started to turn. You felt like, actually, let's sit on 3-1 now. There's no point jeopardising this game, giving Burnley some momentum. We'll sit on 3-1. And as soon as that happens, I think then you make the change. Then you start to sense that moment and you go, right, how do we shore this up? Well, Lukic comes on for Iwobi. That's a nice, easy sub. And, I think you do bring Raul off and you put some sort of outlet up there. The Josh King thing, I could sort of, I understood it, why he did it. I probably would have lumped on someone who was able to get in behind more. I think there was an opportunity that came to Josh King where he did manage to get in behind. And whilst he's blessed with serious acceleration, is great off the mark, anything further than 5 metres and he starts to sort of get caught up by pretty much every centre-back I've seen. He's done it a few times and he just doesn't have the legs to keep going away from someone. And so I wouldn't have minded Chukwueze, Harry Wilson, someone just running that central line and getting in behind and stretching Burnley. But we did those things in the 79th minute, and I think we'd started to just give a little bit of assistance to Burnley to come into this game themselves. I think they were dead and buried. The fans had given up. They were taking the piss out of their own team. Mike Tresor came on for his first appearance in over a year, and that was all the Burnley fans seemed to care about at that point. And I just think that we could have managed it better. And ultimately, it's fine. We managed it well after it went to 3-2. I thought, Burnley didn't have anything, helped mainly by the fact that they're really, unfortunately, quite shit. But I think, we managed it fine. I would have liked it a bit more proactive. And I think it goes back to what Sammy said on Thursday Club, that Marco tends to do his best work off the bench when something is going wrong. And we were in a situation where things were okay, and I think he could have just raised the level one more by making the correct substitutions, and instead he waited. And I think that's where he got it wrong again for me. But overall, Marco did all the right things in general, right starting 11, the right players ultimately came on. I just think he needs to fine tune that and pick his moments better.
Yeah, I mean, Cam, where do you think this leaves us as a kind of like our position within the league? Because obviously we're 3 points as a positive from performance, but as I think you mentioned this on the quick take, like doesn't really get much easier in this league than that game. And if we're sort of limping over the line against Burnley, how does it kind of make you feel for the sort of like more tough fixtures that are coming up?
I mean, first and foremost, we need to tighten up defensively, don't we? It proved, of course, with Burnley's opener that we were far too open. And rule number 1 of defending is to be as tight as possible, regardless of what might be happening in front of you. So maybe that's something we need to brush up on in terms of obviously keeping clean sheets. Against the bigger teams, though, I do see us, getting our tails up and causing a few more problems when we're under the cosh, and just throwing everything we have at it. But it's almost like we panic against teams which we should be matching or beating, like it's not necessarily going to be a given. And we're a little bit light with bodies in terms of depth, but we still have quality there this season to certainly sort of put these teams to the sword a little bit more than what we do. I think we'll be fine. I still think we're going to be perfectly safe. We're just fortunate there are 3 to 4 teams in this league which are infinitely shitter than what we are. I think we just need to be mindful of where we are, and I'm sure Marco reminds us every single day that in Premier League football isn't something we should take for granted. It's a privilege to play at this level, and let's just be more streetwise when we can be. And of course, when we're in the ascendancy, it's stamping our authority into the game and treading on a few necks and trying to pull out a bit more of an assailable lead, and other than a 2-goal deficit, which is ultimately one of the most dangerous leads to hold in football because it just invites so much jeopardy. And I do think we're masters of our own downfall more than anything. So it's just getting our house in order first and foremost, and hopefully the positive results will come from there. And I don't necessarily think we're going to be dragged into peril. We're certainly going to be we're flying a little bit close to the sun. I understand that we're circling the drain, so to speak, but I still think we're escaping. We'll be strong enough to hold our own for the remainder of the season. That's the long and short of it, really.
Yeah, I think if recent history is going to repeat itself, we typically have had pretty good sort of Christmas runs. December very strong, so hopefully we can get some good results. Obviously, we've got Newcastle in the Carabao midweek, followed by Forest at home. So I'm sure the outlook could be looking very rosy with a couple of positive results. Right, we'll leave it there for part 1. Don't go anywhere because we'll be back with some of your questions. It's Fulhamish podcast. George here. I'm joined by Cam, Dan, and Joe. Before we get into your questions, I just wanted to touch upon the other big match of the weekend, which was, of course, Atletico Buble versus the Putney Lions. Cam, you feature for Buble. To give us a quick run through of what happened, because it seemed like it was an absolute thriller over on the Heath.
Well, first, basically, Putney Lions are in our division. They're one of the better teams in our division as well. They've actually got some proper ballers, but we turned up with 12 men, which was absolutely diabolical to start with, considering we had a squad of about 18. We had a few people drop out for unknown reasons because they're taking their misses away to bloody Butlins or something like that.
Christmas party hangovers, I reckon.
Yeah, most likely. But they rocked up with only 8 players. And of course, it's not a buy then because it's 7 players that they have to concede the match. So they still played with 8 players to start off with for the first hour. And we only scored 2 goals in that time. It was pathetic from us. Despite the fact we won and we've been unbeaten for a few weeks, we've been absolute dog shit for a couple of months. And I really can't put my finger on it. And we were peppering them. We were putting balls in the box, especially me on the out wide. I'm more of I'm like a Bentley kind of player, like a hybrid of Bentley and Beckham. I don't like to take a man on too much, but I can whip a ball and put it on sixpence. Don't you worry about that. But nobody was getting on the end of it, so it's extremely frustrating. And for them to go in at half time, with only 8 men, 2-0 down, they were licking their lips because they had a few boys turning up who were pretty handy. And true to form, we ended up shitting the bed in the second half. They had a full complement of players. They went 3-2 up and we were sitting there licking our wounds. But then we did get a late equaliser. We had a little bit of a rally and resurgence late on in the second half. So it went straight to pens from there. It was the most unjust win ever, but that's just football, even at Sunday League level. And to be fair to them, they actually took it in good jest as well, because they're probably going to end up winning the league anyway. And we're more like gatekeepers nowadays, so we're not necessarily going to be pushing for any kind of silverware. But a cup run, you can't go wrong with. We always seem to progress via the penalty shootout. And my penalty was pathetic. It was one of the worst penalties I've ever taken in my life, but their keeper just did not move an inch, and I was so surprised at that. So it was a bit of a gimme. It was written in the stars that we were going to go through, but the Shag and Buble go marching on, and it caps off a decent weekend all round in football terms for me. Obviously Fulham winning, and of course us scraping through via a shootout when we really should have been we should have been pummeled, to be quite honest with you. We should have been pummeled. And we all came off after the game when we were so disappointed with ourselves, because we're a decent team. We back ourselves against anybody, but Christ, we make hard work of it. We have done for some weeks now. And it makes me contemplate why I actually bother playing 11-side football anymore.
It's amazing. I mean, thank you for the update, Cam. I've heard of managers leaving some of their best players on the bench to bring on as impact substitutions, but to start the game with 8 men, to then bring on extra bodies to get to lure the opposition into a full sense of security, which I think is what the tactical charge that maybe the manager went for. That I've never heard of that before.
We were still shit scared of them, but even before kickoff, and they literally had 8 men there, and they were right up for it. They were right in our faces from the off, and I was just there going, fuck this. When's the winter break coming? We're not going to play for 3 months. I can't be bothered with this. And like I say, they had a couple of big boys turn up half time, and we're just sitting there, and our arseholes were flapping. But we got the job done, and we got to carry on. Yeah. And we're digressing a little bit at the moment. Let's stray away from Bublé and get back to the FFC.
Yeah, sorry. I was just imagining your supporters turning up and being like, "What formation have Putney Lions gone for?" They're like, "They've gone for the 4-3." 4-3, no, just 4-3. Anyway, yeah, as you say, back to the Fulham. But yeah, that was very entertaining. Thank you, Dan. We've got some questions here. Took them from Instagram today. Dan Crane 96. I'm going to chuck this one to Dan Cooke. How good has ESR been lately? That is the player that we signed. Now, I think, everyone in agreement, ESR has been pulling out some performances. It's been brilliant to see. He's got more confidence. I think his link-up play and also the balls that he's managing to put through, unlocking, as we used to see Tom Cairney do in those intricate areas around the box. I think it's been brilliant. And of course, he's been getting on the score sheet. But it's the second point. That's the player that we signed. Is the thing that I really want to dwell on, Dan, because we all knew that there was a player in there when he signed him. We haven't really quite seen it. Do you feel like we're starting to, unearth that gem that we knew we were getting?
Absolutely, definitely. This is what we wanted from him, and again, I think it comes back to I think the confidence has always been the issue with him. And it's starting to flourish a little bit. He's picking up those pockets of space that you want to see him in. I think he can still do more to be more forward thinking, but it's definitely an improvement from what we've seen in the past. There's far fewer in the way of backwards and sideways passes. It's a lot more proactive, forward thinking, and that's the key thing. You need that in that role. And confidence, I think, is one thing. Maybe it's the kick up the arse he needed watching Josh King start the season brilliantly. Maybe he needed an example of who is playing, what he should be doing playing in that role. And we've started to see that. And I hope it continues. I think it will. The fact that he played, near enough the whole game as well is a huge thing for us. When did he come off? Just checking, 89th minute. There's got to be the longest he's been on the pitch for Fulham in any one game, which is a massive thing as well. The fitness is there. He's putting himself about. It's really encouraging. And now we've got a genuine battle for whose role that is. And then you've also got the consideration that now do we start to look at how can you fit both of them in the team? How can you have Josh King and Emile Smith-Rowe in that side? And I'm really excited by that as a prospect over the next month, because we're going to have the opportunity to do it. So I'm intrigued to see if Marco does it.
Just off the top of your head, Dan, how could you imagine that could work? Because, as you say, with AFCON coming up, there's spaces in the side and both big talents. Do you think we can make it fit, or have we got an old England problem with the old Gerrard and Lampard situation?
I think it can work. I would argue that Josh King would be the deeper of the two, just purely based on work rate. But from what I've seen from Emile over the past couple of weeks, I don't think it's implausible that he could also play that role. I just think Josh King's a bit more busy. But then you've got the flip side, does he have the physicality? So there's a little bit of a balance there. Neither of them are a perfect replacement for Alex Iwobi, but I'd probably go Josh King playing closer to Sander Berge with Emile Smith-Rowe linking us into that forward line. I think that could work nicely, especially as you look at the way that Iwobi and Smith-Rowe have sort of been splitting recently. So you see Smith-Rowe drift out left, Iwobi drift out right. You form those nice triangles out on the wing. Josh King can absolutely operate in that sort of half space on the right flank and cause lots of problems in the way that Alex Iwobi has been doing.
Yeah, nice. We've got a couple of questions on the defensive frailties that we've displayed over the last few games. So Jacob Pottinger 07 says, has the loss of Stuart Gray affected our organisation defensively? And Teddy adds, defence is clearly a problem at the moment, conceding 9 goals in 3 games. What/who is to blame? Cam, any thoughts on this one?
Well, I suppose it's, it is possible that obviously with Stuart Gray leaving that we've lost a little semblance of leadership in terms of set up on the training fields and maybe new tactics coming into implementation as well. But I just think the goals we've conceded have been of our own making. Really, we haven't necessarily set off on the right foot when we're obviously under the cosh. It's hard to say really. I do think our defence, on their day, is as solid as anybody else's. I think compositionally it works. We've got the right mixture of players there that can obviously chip in a range of roles, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Stuart Gray leaving has had a knock-on effect, of course, in the way that we compose ourselves defensively. So it's a good guess and hypothesis, that's for sure.
I think Cam's nailed it there though. Like, it doesn't really make sense because like that entire back line, if you take the team that started against Burnley, that's our best quality back four on paper, and they are all Premier League quality players, and they put in 85 minutes of Premier League quality minutes, and then there's just bad decisions, weakness, poor positioning is inexplicable to me because I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why these players are making these mistakes because they're so much better than what they're showing at times. Joachim Andersen is so experienced, but I watched him on Saturday at times just get bullied a little bit by Armando Broja. And that shouldn't be happening. The issues Burnley were calling us were such basic ones. It was balls over the top and, have a run at it, see if you can win it in the air. Can you get this flick on? We should be able to deal with that. Those defenders should be able to deal with that. And so maybe this period without Calvin Bassey is a shake-up that's going to be positive, as Joe says. Maybe Cuenca coming in shores things up. I don't know. I think that there just seems to be mistakes in every person in that back line that then causes ourselves problems. Probably barring Kenny Tete, actually. I feel like I never see Kenny Tete make a mistake, and he looked pretty exasperated at times. There was that chance I alluded to earlier where Cooke got in behind Bassey and also for the first goal. But Kenny Tete looks across the pitch thinking everything's in order, and he looks up and sees a Burnley player running through on goal. He just puts his hands up. He's like, what are we doing? How has he got through there? And that's sort of how we all felt on the sofa, I think.
Yeah. I don't have the answers. I'm afraid, but I think to your point, Dan, there could be an opportunity for a bit of shake-up with the likes of Bassey going away, Cuenca coming in, and who knows, maybe we can find a bit more stability. But I think, Jake, you raise a good point. Perhaps Stuart Gray's departure has had an effect. We've got another question here from Ted Cardigan. Great name. I feel like we are caught waiting for Marco to make his decision on whether he wants to stay. When is the club better off cutting their losses and starting to hunt for a new manager? I'd love Marco to stay, but I don't want the club scrambling in July if Marco decides to move on. Now, Joe, where do you stand on this one? Because it's a sort of thing which is rumbling on and causing certainly myself, and I imagine a lot of other Fulham fans, sort of ever-increasing anxiety, just this Marco kind of not signing the deal that he's been offered. There was a report in TalkSport a few days ago that Fulham are tracking Liam Rosina, our former player, who's doing incredibly well at Strasbourg at the moment. Where do you stand on this, Joe? Because it's getting a bit worrying. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I think I'd actually be quite surprised if a decision hasn't been made already. I think Marco himself probably knows whether he's going to be here next season or not, unless a big offer comes in. But I don't think that the sort of club that he would like to progress to from Fulham, I don't think that there is any opening for that at the moment. And it doesn't really look like there's going to be either, unless Frank goes at Spurs and Spurs decide that they want to make a big lunge for Marco Silva. But I think, to be honest, for me, I'm very much in the Marco Silva camp. I didn't buy into any of the stuff a few weeks ago of Marco has to go. He's holding us back. I think that's quite a narrow-minded view of things. I also think that, as football fans, we are very, very fickle. And I think that Marco does need to be afforded some level of almost gratitude from us to not kind of throw him under the bus and to give him time and to give him patience when he's given us so much. Obviously, I think it's always key to go back to the Saudi offer and the money that he turned down. And albeit, sure, that might have not been to stay at the cottage and rather to stay in the Premier League. But still, I think it's testament to him as a person and him as a character. And I think that we, as fans, need to stand beside him and almost give him some time to, if it is a money thing, let him get that little bit extra money. If sort of he's demanding that transfers be made, then I think even better for us as fans, that if he's going, look, I will sign this contract if you promise to back me, which is what I think we kind of think is going on. If you promise to back me in January, then I'm all for that, for him kind of making that stand and not just signing on false promises. So, I think we'll find out. We'll find out at some point. But I'm quietly confident that we will be keeping him for another season. Touch a lot of wood, considering I'm in a sauna right now.
Yeah, important detail that we failed to mention at the top of the show. But Joe is broadcasting live from a sauna in Colombia. I was worried about your body temperature, and I thought by the end of this pod you'd be looking like Marco Silva after we've conceded a contentious VAR decision for a penalty in the last minute. But you've assured me that the sauna is not on. You're at an adequate temperature.
I'm hoping that no one's going to see me from the outside and decide to just stick it on or lock me in.
Yeah, if we see a gentleman wrapped only in a towel just perch up behind Joe, then at least our YouTube viewers will have some kind of explanation. Because
touching wood in a sauna is something, though, isn't it?
Where did you say the sauna was? It wasn't Old Compton Street, is it? Just on the Marco Silva point, Dan. Where do you stand on this debate? Because it's, I think, it's a sentiment which I think divides the fan base a little bit. There are the Marco Silva camp forever, give him time. Probably where I find myself on this side of the debate, but a lot of people are getting a bit frustrated and feel a bit strung along, and I think rightly so as well. So Can and Dan, just quickly before we wrap on this point, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I do want to give real credence to the opinions of those who are getting frustrated with him. I think that's totally valid. I think you can have issues with the system at times where it's got quite samey. It doesn't seem like there's a plan B. It feels like maybe some players are having their freedom coached out of them a bit. It feels a bit stale at times. I totally get that. I also totally get that it's harming the club a little bit, the fact that he's seems to hold all of the power in this contract discussion. And that power imbalance isn't great because it just lends itself to more uncertainty on the pitch, off the pitch, stuff we could do without. I think those are all valid points, but I'm still with Joe. This guy's given us the most ridiculous 4.5 years. When he took over, if you could have said, how would you define success for the next 5 years for Fulham? For a start, if you're saying he was staying for 5 years, already we've achieved great things, because that doesn't happen. And secondly, it would have looked like this, no? It would have looked like winning the championship, a top half finish, cup semi-finals, cup quarter-finals, getting really close to the big time. He's done pretty much all you could ask of him with the resources he's had. So I'd be inclined to give him more time, because I don't see a huge amount out there that's going to come in and replace that. And I think we've developed a great bond with him as fans. I think he understands what it means to be a Fulham fan, which is always important. And I want to see him get it right. I want to see him given a couple more years to really achieve the holy grail, the thing that the entire club is looking for, which is a trophy. I just think, a couple more years and it's there. The potential is there. And I'd love it to be Marco who ends up lifting that silverware for us.
Cam?
Yeah, I'm spot on from both Joe and Dan, really. And I'm certainly within that corner in camp as well. I know you shouldn't necessarily look at football with a sentimentality, but you certainly can where Marco's concerned. He's just galvanised the club, and he's given us a bit of a much deeper, greater sense of feel good. And of course, that goes with it not only just progressing to semi-finals of Carabao Cups and top half finishes, relatively comfortable, but some notable wins in that time. Of course, winning at Old Trafford, Turf Moor, of course, and then you've got Chelsea on Boxing Day as well, which was nigh on probably the best footballing experience I've ever had. Not least in recent times, but in the Marco era, that just encapsulates everything which he's about and what this club's trying to achieve, which is it's turning the tables, isn't it? It's trying to write new histories, and I agree. I think he just needs more time, more money for him to implement his style even more, because obviously it's not a secret that he hasn't necessarily been given the funding to build his own squad necessarily, and with certain people maybe getting involved in the recruitment side of things and just unsettling things behind closed doors. I'm not going to name any names, but I think we can probably have a guess at who I'm alluding to. I do think if he was given free rein on who he brings in and what we're trying to achieve, then we won't go far wrong. And I do believe that, like Dan says, Marco deserves a proper crack at the whip. And if he can be the guy to bring us some silver and some proper success, then all power to him. And hopefully we get some good news coming in the next couple of weeks. Once the January transfer window kicks off, maybe that will just bring a flurry of excellent news, and Marco signing a new long-term contract will just be cherry on top and the carrot that goes with it. So let's bring it on. Let's have a bit of fun with it.
Beautiful place to end, I think, Cam. Nicely put. Before we wrap up, we were chatting before the recording of the podcast. Joe's obviously coming from us from Colombia, sporting a nice baseball cap, which he revealed was concealing what he described as the worst haircut he's ever had. I personally think it's quite fetching. Joe, if you would be so kind, would you mind taking off the hat to reveal? This is mainly for the benefit of the YouTube contingent, but I will describe what it is. So talk us through the Barnet and the decision-making process, because that is quite something.
The decision-making process, there wasn't much that went into it. I was so obviously traveling. I'm staying at hostels along the way. There was beer involved, unfortunately. I think when you've got a buzz cut, one of the worst things that you can see when you're pretty inebriated is someone walking around with a thing of bleach. I was absolutely assured that it would wash out after a week. Obviously, bleach isn't going to wash out. I was quite unaware that it was bleach. So it got done, and as soon as it got done, the bloke went, "You do know that isn't going to wash out, right?" And now here I am in Colombia. I've got very worried parents that I've got a target on my head, walking around with literal polka dots all over my head. It definitely gets some interesting looks and interesting attention, but I'm not sure if it will be one to stay. I've been said that I should go with some different designs after this one, but I don't know yet. I'm open to suggestions, I guess.
Yeah, leave it in the comments if anyone's got any suggestions.
I love the idea that in South America, instead of having like a cigarette woman who comes out when you're in a bar and is like, would you like any fags? It's just like a bloke with some bleach. Just be like,
it was a drunk Australian man. Yeah,
it's like initiations with Brazilian players, isn't it? Really, where they all get the dodgy haircuts because they're newbies in the squad, isn't it? So pretty impressive stuff. I like it.
I like it as well. Any NBA fans? It reminded me of sort of Dennis Rodman in the Chicago Bulls era, sort of like leopard print maybe. But yeah, it got us thinking, like, what are the worst ever Fulham haircuts that we've had in recent times? Ryan Babel's sort of cherry red hair sort of like springs to mind. There have been any more that we can think of off the top of our head? It's not normally one that we associate with Fulham players. We haven't had many sort of, normally it comes from, it's the continental players that seem to have the Laria haircuts, whereas we haven't really had.
Does anyone remember at the start of last season when Raul had cornrows? That was
nobody talks about
that was abhorrent. That was dreadful. That's worse than that, Joe. I would have that every day over that.
He looked like a Fast and Furious villain, didn't he?
Just looked ridiculous.
Mad.
Yeah, terrible. It sort of reminded me. Do you remember when David Beckham had cornrows and he rightly was getting the piss taken out of him on a chat show recently, and he said the worst thing about cornrows at that time is that it was when I met Nelson Mandela. And so there's a photo of David Beckham with meeting Nelson Mandela with those cornrows in. And you're meeting like a humanitarian icon, and the photograph which is going to be on your mantelpiece at home, and you've got that Barnet. So Joe, I hope you don't bump into like Malala or someone, and then that's the Barnet that you've got.
I've thought of one more potentially bad haircut, not to throw a child under the bus. But I think Harvey Elliott's haircut when he made his debut for us, I think that was a shocker.
Yeah, that wins for sure. I remember seeing a tweet at the time that said, Harvey Elliott, he looks like he's got 7 different haircuts at once. It was like buzz undercut, top knot, like slits and stuff on the side. Yeah, I think Harvey Elliott's debut haircut wins that debate. But yeah, if you have any other thoughts, put them in the comments. Be interested to hear. I'm sure there are some from yesteryear that we've overlooked. Right, all that's left to do is to name the podcast, which I shall do now. Did you guys have any off the top of your head that you can remember that you quite liked? Cam, yours was pretty good. Was it Turf No More?
Can't have mine. You can't have mine. It's not fair.
Can't be having yours. Why don't we go for, there was one about the curse. Wonderful Wilson Time by Tony Banks.
It's nice. Fitting, isn't it? I like it.
Yeah. And on that note, hope everyone's enjoying this festive period. We'll be back on Thursday with the Thursday Club. Liz will be live from the Quayside, and Dan as well, live from the Quayside for Newcastle following our Carabao Cup clash. How are you feeling, Dan, going into this one?
I regret that I'm going. That's how I feel. But actually, if you could ask for a run of form for Newcastle to come into this game and some infighting going on, it's lining up pretty nicely. It's just a shame we don't have our Niger boys. Otherwise, I think things would look even better.
Yeah, I mean, terrible result for them in the derby this weekend. So hopefully they can ride that negative wave into our match. But yeah, anyone travelling up to Newcastle, have a wonderful time. I lived in Newcastle for 3 years, and nobody does Christmas in this country quite like the Geordies. So have a great time, enjoy the Newquay Browns, and we'll see you later in the week. Come on, you Whites.
You Whites.